Hello, so we're going to do another Geiger counter video now. This one is going to be on a Chinese model of Geiger counter. Now what I'll do in a moment is get you the box out and read out everything that's on the box. But I don't know if this one has a specific name, because although I've seen these sold under certain names, I think it might be a case of, you know, they're sold under whatever name the company thinks will sell well. So that's what it shows on the device. It just says Geiger Muller counter there, if the camera will focus on it. I've got on autofocus, but again, it's probably trying to see my face, so if I put that there, it might actually focus. But yeah, it says Geiger Muller counter on there and some Chinese writing. Okay, so your display on this is pretty simple. You've got your real time in blue, which is microsieverts an hour, and it only goes up to 99.99 microsieverts, which I will be able to demonstrate in a bit. So this isn't good if you wanted an oh shit, what's the radiation level sort of Geiger counter. You've then got another bit of the display, which is your average. That takes a few minutes to warm up once you turn the device on, but it seems to work fine. And then you've got your graph. So it does most of the functions the Soeks does. Now, what I will show you is the Soeks O1M is quite a bit smaller. I was assuming when I first bought this it would be Soeks size, but it's really not. If you can see that. But this does seem to work fine for what it is. Bear in mind, obviously, that it only goes up to 99.99 microsieverts, which is tiny. I think in millirontgen, that's about 11 millirontgen, roughly. You know, I'm not counting the 0.23 whatever sort of thing, but yeah. So, what we're going to do is first check if these two Geigers actually show similar numbers to each other when they're left on. I've only obviously just turned the Soeks on, so it will be warming up. That's assuming that I've not got any contamination on the Soeks, which might actually affect its reading. But if they end up in very similar microsievert numbers to each other, that would be good. If I just put this onto searching a moment, there we go. So that's a fairly similar display for each of them. Now, what I'm going to do is, yeah, at the moment the numbers are pretty similar. Of course, it could be this one is more sensitive, or whatever, because the Soeks is lower, or it could be because it's been turned on for longer. So what I'm going to do now is get some radioactive samples, and we're going to actually see how accurate each of the counters are to each other. And I've actually cleared a bit of space for this video, you know, being a bit more inclined to make a professional video this time. So what we're going to do is get some samples, and we will see how accurate this one is to the Soeks, and then I will demonstrate where this kind of fails if you put it up to high level exposure. Where, you know, it's good in the sense that it won't trip out, but it will obviously overload and tell you it's at 99.99 microsieverts. So don't do a Chernobyl and say that's not great, that's not terrible, because the reading will be much higher than that. It's just it can't tell you. But yeah, these aren't too dissimilar numbers on these. So anyway, let's put them on some samples and see how they go from there. Okay, so here are both our Geiger counters side by side, and the Soeks is at 0.10 now, and the Chinese one is at 0.18. So how more accurate or less accurate it is, I don't know. But what we're going to do now is put both of them onto some samples, and we'll see, you know, if we get anything particularly interesting come up from that. So, one thing I didn't mention is this one also has an alarm function like the Soeks, and I think you can use that button to set the alarm to different values. So we'll try that. So we're going to try a couple of different things. So what? Oh, one of them already. The Soeks heard me just essentially opening a bag and taking something out then. Right. So what we're going to do first is quite a small sample. It's a new one you won't have seen before, and this is a bit of some uranium type powder. It's got some duct tape over there, so obviously it didn't open when the seller sent it to me. So what we're going to do is put this between the two Geigers. If it's particularly closer to one of the windows on one than the other, that might affect the reading a bit, but let's see. Look, you can see they're both ticking up, so they're both doing their job. So yeah, they're still both counting, although I think the Soeks is sort of stabilising at the moment with it. Okay, so it now is saying over 1 microsievert on the Chinese unit. The Soeks is about 1.55, if that's in microsievert still. I think it still is, yeah, 1.64. what you'll see is when the Chinese unit stabilises, it will kind of flick up and down a couple of numbers in a certain range. Right, so the Soeks is still higher, but what I want to do now is just move the Chinese unit a bit closer to it, in case... So I'll move the Soeks back slightly, and what I'll do is I'll just put the Chinese unit on top of it, just in case, there we go. So obviously it's absorbing more of a dose from it now, and it could also be it takes better beta readings through the bottom of the unit, because the Geiger tube inside, you can see it through the bottom, because it's just kind of like a grate on the back. Similar to the Soeks, actually. Although I did find it was actually easier earlier, before I started the video, to measure certain samples using the bigger Chinese one, because you've got a bigger sort of beta window. But anyway, yeah, I'd say they're both pretty accurate. I'd say when they're both reading the sort of beta count as well, you know, you're going to get a similar number. So on that, not too much of a difference. Obviously where I've moved the Soeks away, that's affected that. And you can see the real-time reporting graph there. The real-time reporting graph as well tends to, I think the top end of it is 0.6, so unless that actually updates in real time as well, which I don't think it does, in the sense of, you know, like the trend graph going higher, that might be a problem. But anyway, we're getting to about 2.13, 2.16, oh, it's still counting actually. Or is it stabilising now? Yeah, I reckon 2.2 to 2.3. So as you can see, because I was just saying there, that's where you can get at the Geiger tube from the big beta window. Interestingly, it can obviously read beta through the side, so that's good. The tube is actually put diagonally, so in theory it shouldn't be... Oh, and you can read it from the top. Yeah, this does seem like quite a well-designed unit for taking readings. But anyway, if we just put the Soeks directly on top of it, I just want to see now what sort of reading that gives. Oh, and the screen's decided to go into power saving mode. It's on 5.88, so with these samples they're going fairly differently actually. Oh, there we go, measuring. Maybe I should have stuck to measuring mode. 1.63. But yeah, that's a pretty similar number in measuring mode. Right, let me keep the Soeks on measuring mode then, and we'll get our next sample. So that was the uranium. Now the good old classic piece of Fiestaware. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. Tell you what, I'm just going to turn the camera viewfinder to check that's still in frame. Ah, excellent, it is. Right, so there's our bit of Fiestaware. So let's first put each Geiger like this to the Fiestaware and see how that interacts. Now I've noticed that one tends to drop off faster, which I kind of like. I actually also really like the Geiger sound. This makes it sounds more like a classic one rather than what they've put a piezoelectric speaker in there, I don't know. Let me put the alarm function, which I think is the alarm. There we go, yeah, that is the alarm function. So, that's on 0.5, that's on 1, that's on 2, that's on 5. So that's obviously, if you have the alarm turned on, the amount of microsieverts to sound the alarm. So that is actually quite straightforward. So 5.0 means you need 5 microsieverts to sound the alarm, 0.5, you know, half a microsievert. If you want the alarm completely off, you press this, which is the sound button, and then when it has the dots, it will just do the sensor sound. I'm just seeing if I can get the Soeks to go any higher, because at the moment we're getting the higher reading from the Chinese Geiger. .65. It's going up. Let me just put the Soeks ever so slightly on top of the Fiestaware, just in case it's getting a higher reading now. Again, the problem with these sort of units is getting them in the exact same place for getting the exact same measurement. But that does seem fairly close to the Soeks. They're both on 3 now. .68 versus about 3.5 on that one. Now Soeks is on 4, so that's a lot higher. So let me put this now directly on top like that and see if that gives a higher reading. Yeah, it does. So yeah, I'd be pretty confident both of these units are very accurate in the sort of microsievert range when you get them into the right place. Sort of on something to take a sample. Right, so I'll turn the Soeks off now for a little bit, so you can just listen to this Geiger ticking away. And I'll turn the Soeks back on in a moment because I'll demonstrate one thing the Soeks can do better. But yeah, so that's, if I put this totally on top of that bit of Fiestaware, you should hopefully hear the lovely classic sort of Geiger clicking noise. Not really loads to say while it does this, just, you know. I don't know however many minutes it takes for that to update though, the average, because you'll notice that the average is still quite low considering, but it might be, it's like every 6 minutes or something it updates the average rather than doing it in real time. There you go, anyway, that's the Fiestaware. So we'll chuck that to the side with the uranium all, and then you'll notice that that will start going back down, and it will stabilise on background readings again. Now if you press the play button here, what it will do is that will just clear everything now. That will still take a moment to drop back down. So what we're going to do now is just chuck it on top of my Thorium lamp mantles, where I've got 60 of them in a thing, because why not? And see what sort of reading it gives. But here's the thing, is because there's 60 in a bag like that, it doesn't mean it's reading all 60 at once, it's reading ones closest to the sensor most likely. You know, the lockers, they have very short range on them, which is why they're not that dangerous unless you know, inhale bits of it. And now he's counting up again, because he's obviously decided, you know, it was a bit more radioactive than it first thought. Imagine if I put a bit more pressure on the unit. It will actually take a higher reading that way. Out of interest, let's put this to the side of the thing, just to see. Yeah, now it's going down again. Yep, there you go. But yeah, you'll notice that the trend graph is pretty much maxed out, because I think the trend graph is only good for little things. Right, now I'm going to demonstrate the limitations of this unit, and I mean like the serious limitations of it. So, what we have here is the Strontium-90 in a DP66 case behind a metal cover. As I've said before, this is the one Beastoree sent me. So big thanks to him, because this is very useful for testing units like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get this unit, and obviously notice that the cover's on the Strontium-90 at the moment, and we are going to put this directly onto the Strontium-90, and you'll basically see what happens. So if we hold it there, you'll notice it's already taking a reading, because of course the Strontium-90 has quite a good range on it. But notice the trend graph has already peaked out, even though, you know, it was getting higher potentially than it was before. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this directly onto the Strontium-90 source. And there we go, the meter has reached its capacity. So if you can see that, it says 99.99 microsieverts an hour. What I'm just going to do is zoom in a bit on the screen there. And let's hope the camera focus will realise, there we go, oh, it's very nice on this new camcorder. But yeah, you'll see that it's basically telling you it's no higher than 99.99. So this device is only good for low level radiation, because we're basically overloading it about 11 millirontgen, I believe. And if you remember what the Strontium-90's actual reading is, it's about 1.25, 1.3 rontgen per hour is its actual, you know, thing. So if I just zoom that out a bit more, what I will do now is, I don't want to burn out this Geiger counter, so I will just grab this one and turn it off now. But yeah, it's good for low-level readings, just not so great for high-level readings. So let's start off. So now we'll use the Soeks 01M. Now the Soeks isn't even all that great on the Strontium either, because the problem if you put the Soeks 01M on the Strontium is that it really starts draining the battery quickly and messing with the current in the unit. But what it will at least do is give you an accurate reading up until the point it sort of fails. So I'm just going to turn the camera viewfinder around again to make sure this is all in frame. There we go. So here's the Soeks on. So it's already picking up the Strontium from here. I'll put it on searching mode, and at least the bar graph on this one actually adapts with it. But what we're going to do is put the Soeks directly on the Strontium. And whether or not this is close enough to the sensor that you'll get the full beta reading from it, I don't know. But what will end up happening is the microsieverts per hour bit at the bottom should keep going up. So what I'm just going to do actually is get behind the camcorder and zoom right in on the screen there for you. So you can hopefully see this as well as possible, seeing as I've got a camcorder that can do this now. Why not? There we go. It's actually nice and clear on the display, which is good. So, what we're going to do now is just let that, you see where there was a bit of a peak earlier, it's not directly on the Strontium, so let me fix that. Yeah, there we go, the numbers are really shooting up now, 267. So remember the previous one finished at 99.9, and this is at 267, hopefully that's still readable on the camera. 456. This should be close to the number where it stops soon, because essentially it averages out about 553 microsieverts an hour. You know, between about 500 and 600. I know that's a big gap, but the point is the Soeks can actually, you know, read this. Again, it's finding the soft spot on the Soeks where the Geiger Muller tube basically sits closest to the Strontium. But yeah, the point is that you at least get an accurate reading from this, even if it starts draining the battery quickly and overloading the Geiger. So yeah, there we go. That's a measure of what that Geiger counter can't do. So, here we go, here's the unit, and here's the box as promised, so you can have a read of it. So that's the front. It says, radiation detector, testing experts around you. So I don't know if it means that you actually are meant to test the experts and ask them how good this device is. That's probably not what they meant by that. So this particular box says this is a model, is it? BR-6B. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it is that model, because with lots of Chinese things, quite often different sort of factories making them will give them different brands. But it seems there's a BR-6A, a BR-6B and a BR-6C. The difference between them I don't know. On this bit, I'm assuming it gives you more details on what the difference is between the models. The only thing I can see of the BR-6B is it has both the gamma and the beta symbol there. So I don't know if some of the models only do gamma, some only do beta. I don't think you can have a Geiger that only does beta. I know this is meant to do X-rays as well. But yeah, there you go. So hopefully you found this interesting. As I said, this is actually very good for what it is, especially because the price of these are coming down. To give you an idea, this one was on UK eBay for about £48 brand new. It was actually from a UK seller, not ordering it from China, because it came within about 3 days of being ordered, and that was including the weekend. So obviously, as soon as they dispatched it and got it through Royal Mail, it came really quickly. And there aren't many Geiger counters in this sort of money range. You can power it either via a USB there, or I've just got two AA batteries in. It says this one, unlike the Soeks, doesn't charge the batteries when it's plugged in via USB. It's just if you want it constantly on, have it plugged in via USB. Now, it's obviously bigger than the Soeks, but it's still in the small size of a Geiger counter if you think of the size of old things like DP66s, DP75s, you know, American CDV 700 series Geiger counters. So, yeah, it's small, but not really small. At some point in a future video, you can see the Geiger tube just there if you're interested. That's that. it'd kind of be interesting to see what this Geiger tube can actually read if you put on a screen that can display higher units. If it's a close enough size, I could always stick it in the Soeks, to be honest, and it would probably work. If not, I can probably rig it up to one of the other Geiger counters, or I could try putting a different tube in there and see if that affects the readings very much. But yeah, to think that these were about £100 less than a year ago, now they're about £50, they are not bad for what they are. As I said, they're not as convenient size-wise as a Soeks or any of the other very similar ones. The problem of these essentially getting stuck at the top of the scale is not an exclusive problem, it's just my Soeks doesn't do that. But I do know that there are other brands of Geiger counter, ones that cost a lot more than this, you know, that literally will get stuck at some sort of reading because they can't go higher than it. And I mean, on the old analog Geiger counters you could understand why that would happen, because you run out of spaces for the multiplier switch or whatever. You know, or it would require too many different tubes. With these, I don't know if they've really got that excuse, because you think with a digital display, all this would be able to do would be scale up one more time. And I definitely believe the tube in there could get readings beyond 99.99. It's just, I don't think the display, you know, I think it should have an extra number on the side, so at least you can get up to 1 millisievert on there, essentially 999.99, you know, microsieverts rather than it just being 99.99 microsieverts. But there you go, for what it is I actually quite like it. And one thing it does have above the Soeks, because of its sort of fatter, chunkier design, it will sit on a desk much better. If you just had it, you know, like sat there like that on the desk, it will sit upright and not fall over. Especially if you were running it constantly with a USB cable, just so you could constantly see what background levels are. Another thing I like is that, as I said, if you look at here, rather than it just being, you know, the probe being exposed on the back with a bit, so you make sure you get your beta readings, this one has the grill sort of on all sides around the probe. So it means you should get more radiation entering this unit, which might be why the background levels on this one were a bit higher than the Soeks, because it's actually picking up, you know, stuff in the air better. But yeah, there you go. That's a little quick review of these Chinese Geiger counters that you can see for sale. Certainly not good for reading very high levels of radiation, but if you are aware that the top it will do is 99.99 microsieverts, there's not really a problem with that. Just don't buy one thinking you can use it to, you know, measure things in the high-end range. You can't, but if you wanted something to tell you if something's higher than background levels, and, you know, if it was 99.99, you knew you'd be in the shit anyway, so you ought to get out of there. For that, yeah, it's fine. You know, it does the job perfectly. So yeah, I would recommend this actually. Just make sure you know before you buy it that 99.99 is the highest it goes. Because, you know, if you were buying it for measuring high-level radioactive stuff, I think you'll be very disappointed. But all in all, it's a good unit, and it does make a very nice ticking sound actually. So there's that advantage as well. I'm assuming in there it actually has a piezoelectric speaker somewhere. I think it does. Oh, it does, yeah. Don't know if that will show up on the camera through there, but there's actually a piezoelectric speaker on the side there, like a classic one. So, yeah, that's why it sounds like a classic Geiger counter, because it's using the same old tech the classics used, rather than like a digital speaker. But there you go.